In this game, Bobby Fischer executes a perfect fried liver. It's uncommon to see the fried liver being played at the highest of levels because it's technically a refuted opening, but Bobby Fischer proves otherwise. So Fischer starts off with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and after knight f6 by black, we go into the fried liver with knight g5, attacking this f7 pawn. So black blocks the bishop's vision off this f7 pawn with d5. White recaptures on d5, and although the most popular move and the main line for black is to go knight a5, black chooses in this game another move, knight d5. This is not the best move because it allows a nice knight sacrifice for Fischer with knight f7, but Fischer played something that could be even better with d4, and he's threatening to rip open this e-file, and this black king is yet to castle, so you can know that bad things are about to happen. Now, black takes the bait and recaptures on d4. We have castles by Fischer preparing to go rook e1 and have open lines on the e-file. Bishop e7 safeguards this king and attacks this g5 knight. But now Fischer can play the brutal knight f7, and because of this fork, black is forced to take the knight on f7. But this runs into a pin on d5, so Fischer takes advantage of this with queen f3. He attacks this d5 knight and while also checking the king. Black should most likely go to king e8 or even bishop f6. Because after king e8, you would be losing the d5 knight, but black is able to defend with something like rook f8. Unfortunately for black, he decides to protect his knight with king e6, but he's walking further into white's territory, and his king is closer to the middle. So Bobby Fischer takes advantage of this with rook e1 check. If this king moves onto the d-file, it's basically checkmate, unless he goes to d7, but you would be losing your knight. So black chooses knight e5, and now it looks like the black king is fine. Like, there's no serious attacks. But that is just an illusion, because these pin knights are very bad for black, and Bobby Fischer immediately takes advantage of this with bishop f4, putting pressure on this pinned e5 knight. And this knight can't take because of the pin on the king. So in bishop f6, defending the e5 knight, but knight c3, a very fancy move by Fischer, because if you take on c3, there's a nice line here after rook takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5. And after the king takes on e5, you can go rook e1 check. If the king moves to d6, queen takes d5 is mate. So the king must run into the middle with king d4, but now white can take on d5, queen takes, and now queen takes c3 would be a brutal checkmate. My arrow drawing skills aren't that great. So we have c6 by black, reinforcing this weak d5 knight. But now Fischer can sacrifice his rook with rook takes e5. And black chooses not to take the bait and goes to f7. If you were to take this rook with something like bishop takes e5, after rook e1, things are looking very bad for black, and he's going to lose a lot of material because of that pin. So king f7 by black, and now Fischer chooses to take on d5, opening lines on the king. But again, black chooses not to take the bait and goes bishop e6, blocking any sort of attacks on his king, because if you were to take, there's this line with bishop takes d5, king g6 runs into mate in 1, and king f8, after bishop takes d5, king f8 once again runs into a checkmate after queen h5. He threatens checkmate, and if black were to try to defend with queen d7, white has the knockout blow with rook e8, and bishop d6, bishop e7, queen f3, bishop f5, just last resort, and it's eventually gonna be mate. So bishop e6 by black, and Fischer just takes the bishop, because if this king recaptures, it'll get bad. But for the first time in this game, black chooses to take the rook. to take the free piece. But now it gets very bad. And it's actually checkmate in 4, as you can see by the eval bar, with knight c7, a double check. But Fischer chooses a more simpler approach with knight takes f6. It's a check on the king, and if the king were to recapture, there are very nasty things being threatened with a discovered check from the queen after the bishop moves. So we have king e7 in the game instead, but now Fischer can take advantage of the open e-file with rook e1, and once again you cannot take this knight because of some nasty discovered checks. So Black chooses to retreat with the king, but now Fischer slides the queen over to a3, and in this position Black resign because you cannot stop checkmate. This king has nowhere to move, and there is imminent checkmate on the board. And this is Bobby Fischer's incredible fried liver.